All right, guys, welcome back to Elk Week. If you're new here to the channel, welcome to Born and Raised Outdoors. We're here to entertain, educate, and inspire. And the big thing for us, we love elk hunting, we love calling elk, and that's what this week's all about. It's just the whole process of it. Today, I'm going to run through a bunch of calling side of it, and just to kind of show you guys what we do. Not that it's right, it's just what we've done, where we've made mistakes in the past, and what's worked for us. So we want to kind of cover that whole gambit for you and kind of show you the tools and tips that we've learned over the years of hunting elk, whether it's in Oregon coast or in the Rockies in Wyoming or Colorado, any of those. It all applies to all of them. I think a lot of people kind of get hung up like, well, I'm backpack hunting in Colorado, so Roosevelt hunting really doesn't those tactics don't cross over. And an elk's an elk. Even between the different subspecies. So kind of want to talk through that. Like I said, if you've missed some of the videos of Elk Week, that's what this week's all about. It's all about elk. On the first day, we dropped a killer video that it was all about killing a bunch of elk. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. And stay tuned later in this week. We got more stuff coming for you. Like I said, anything and everything about elk. Giveaway wise, guys, if you have not entered yet, so just hit the link below in the video here and you can get entered to win. We're going to give away a cat road shuffle. So everything we make for elk hunting, call wise, plus a set of meat bags, get you guys covered to get a bull killed and packed out of the woods. So with that, let's jump into a little calling.
All right, so picking an elk call. It sounds super simple, but it's probably the most questions that we get is what elk call works best for me. All that's going to be determined in every single elk call looks the same. They all have different colors. They're pretty little things, but they all do different things. And what that varies on is going to be the thickness of the latex in the call and the stretch of that latex across the frame. What that's going to do is going to be palatable for different people. I can't take a really tight stretched latex. I have a thinner stretched latex that works better for me. Other people, Trevor and Kody, they can do a really tight stretched latex. Strand, he's in between. He's midway latex, and he has the best luck with like the OTC. I'm in the more easy cow, like the committed reed side of things. So everybody's different, and I can't answer the question as far as which reed's going to work best for me because I have no idea. Some guys can throw any reed in their mouth and make awesome sounds out of it. I'm not one of those guys. I have to practice, just like shooting a bow, just like doing anything else. I have to practice with it, and that's why I've kind of found my niche. Everybody's mouth is different, so it runs off the dome of your mouth, your palate, and so you have to have that seal with your tongue up against the top of your palate to make that call, to make that noise from that call. So like I said, everybody's different, and I recommend everybody, we have a call pack called the Collection. Everybody try those out, and you're gonna get better at it too. It's just like shooting a bow at 20 yards versus after you've practiced a long time, you can hit something out to 60, 70 yards and be very consistent. Same exact way with calling. A lot of people will throw it in their mouth and go, oh, I'm choking on this call. Well, it's just because your mouth's foreign to it. You have to get that kind of muscle memory, I would say, with that latex, with that frame in your mouth, and then you start making those noises and you build on those noises. So our next module is going to talk about doing that and getting that sound. That's all you want is at first, is getting that sound. So we make 7 different reeds, and what I tell everybody that asks me, they say, well, what call is going to work for me? I guarantee you 1 out of these 7 reeds will work for you. What I mean by that is you don't have to throw away all your other calls. What you can do is use that call to get fluent with it and build on that. And then after you start using that and getting the motions down and the sounds down, then you can probably progress into a different call. A lot of people can blow perfect sounds out of any of our calls. It just matters which one that works for your palate and which stretch of the latex and thickness of latex works best for you, and then you can build on them. So just to get you in the door, I would really recommend the Collection pack. You can go through a bunch of different calls, every single one that we make, find out which one works for you, and then build on that. So now that you have the calls, all right, open them up and start throwing them in your mouth and seeing if you can make a sound out of them. All I'm looking for at first is just a sound. And I'm not talking a bugle, cow sound or anything. I'm talking just a sound, making a high pitch squeal of a sound just to get that tone from your tongue out your mouth. All right, so have your call in hand, put it in the top of your mouth. I'm using the Easy Cow right now. It's one of my more favorite calls that we make. So what I want on the roof of the mouth, and just make a sound. Just try to make a sound. There's a lot of people that'll kind of choke. They won't really get it. Just put it on the roof of your mouth, and it can be clear up to the front of your teeth. Some people call that way. Some people call with it way back in the palate of their in the roof of their mouth as well. There's no wrong way. It's whatever works for you. So the biggest thing is just to get that air sealed off around the top of this call to the roof of your mouth. But first, just try to make a noise. That's just a noise. That's just trying to actually get something out. And that's a big, big step for a lot of people. And then after you do that, numbers and numbers of time, try to control that noise. Try to take it to the next level of, okay, let's try to make somewhat of a sound, whether it be, if I'm trying to make a bugle, I'm gonna try to hit that high note. So I'm gonna try to really push my tongue against that latex and really get that high note out of it and just hold it. Just get used to it. That's all I'm doing, just trying to actually just get my tongue to where every single time I put this in my mouth, I'm gonna make that sound that I want to hear. And so then you just kind of take it to the next level of trying to get it, trying to make a natural elk sound out of it. So if you're bugling or cow calling, so a cow call, you're gonna start really high and then you're gonna kill it and die. So it's gonna sound a little something like this. This is how I would start it if I was you in the beginning too. Super simple. You're taking that from a high note and you're just dropping off of it, and so you're making that that natural cow sound. And as you just practice with that, don't be like, well, I can't do it. I can't, I'm just getting a peep out of it. Keep practicing. It takes days and days and days and days. It's just like shooting a bow. It's just like doing any sport. With more practice, you're going to become better and you're going to become more fluent in it. So do it in your truck, do it in the car, on the way to work, so you don't annoy your wife or kids. Do it in your free time while you're alone. Just keep getting those sounds out of it. So just keep perfecting that sound. Keep getting that sound of a cow call. And when you've got that kind of figured out, then you can move on to the next module, which is going to be doing the bugle.
All right, next up, guys, is talking about the bugle and how to make sounds, how to use a tube, going from the bugle to the chuckle, to the lip ball, to the bark scream, any of those kind of sounds that you can make. And what you're gonna use is a mouth call. So right here I have the Easy Cow. It's on our ARC frame. This call I ran all last year. It's a very good call, basic entry level, but also has the sounds and capabilities with the latex and the stretch that matches my preference to bugle as well. So just because it's labeled Easy Cow doesn't mean you can't bugle with it. So as Trent talked about, kind of the basics, how to get the sound out, how to use your diaphragm and the pressure to get the air. Basically, as a bugle is going to be a longer, drawn-out cow mew. So the cow, you can see I drop my jaw. The tone changes and lower. As you go to bugle, the same deal. You're putting pressure across the reed, and as you let off pressure, the tone gets a little bit lower, and then you kind of add voice into it. It doesn't sound like much without a tube. You introduce the bomb tube like this. You can add pressure, add volume. The tube really, contains all that sound, gets the back pressure, and increases the volume of that. I'm pushing up with the bridge of my tongue into the roof of my mouth, putting pressure across the reed. So I don't blow with the tip of my tongue here like I do turkey calling. I actually use about a third of the tongue through and kind of create that curved surface in my mouth. And I anchor my tongue at the bottom back of my lower jaw along those teeth. So that's how you get that arc, and you're going to control the pressure of your tongue. The more pressure, the higher pitch. and you can increase or decrease your airflow as well. So that's kind of the basics of bugling. Like I said, start with any reed that you can make a cow call out of it, exaggerate the length of that, and increase the pressure, and add a little voice to it, ooh, ooh, and you can get that guttural sound out of it. So that's the basics art of a bugle. Now the chuckle is a shortened, exaggerated cow call. And the chuckle is definitely one that kind of separates the human callers to the elk sounding callers. And you can tell right away, you know, with a guy that can't chuckle, he might bugle really well, and all of a sudden you hear that chuckle, and you're like, that's a human, that's a hunter right there. It's Doug Flutie. The biggest thing with chuckling that I've learned over the years is the influx of air in and out. So when I first started to learn how to chuckle, it was ooh, 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 and I was just pushing air out. And next thing you know, I run out of air, it really falls off fast. And the cadence is wrong. So when you're chuckling, like I said, the initial kind of sound of it, it's going to be that exaggerated cow call. It's going to be shortened, and you're going to, so instead of just a cow call, now you're going to exaggerate it and shorten it. Put a tube to it. This is a bark as well, it's part of a bark. Now, if you get that air exchange, and the biggest thing, like I said, cadence is key on chuckling. You don't want to go too fast, you don't want to go too slow, you know, and the big thing is jump on YouTube, get a lot of elk audio that you can listen to, and try to simulate what an actual elk sounds like. So you're getting that air in and out, and you can hear that vibration as that air's coming back in. It gets that little guttural sound. You know, if you're doing that chuckling right, you should be able to chuckle for an extended period of time. If you're not getting that air exchange out, you're going to run out of air, and it's going to sound something like this. And a lot of people, you know, it's too fast. It doesn't have that guttural sound. You don't get that air exchange in and out. So, like I said, the big thing on chuckling is cadence. Practice your timing as those breaths are coming in and out. And some bulls, they get it fast, they get an excited chuckle, or they'll have like a long drawn out, almost mini bugle in it. You'll get it like this is kind of one of the chuckles I like to go to. You can hear that like second note's got a little mini bugle in it. Kind of mix it up, play on it, and simulate. If you're calling it a bull, do the copycat side of it. You'll get some of those. Seems like it's a typical really nice 5-point, gets that super excited fast chuckle. So play around with it, kind of work through, try different reeds. You can get some different tones. This Easy Cow's got a little bit higher pitch. LOF reed's got a little bit lower pitch in the chuckle. The next one actually I'll cover real quick is going to be the lip ball. And the lip ball is actually a pretty easy sound once you get the bugle down. And what you're going to do is you're going to make a bugle, but now you're going to bring your lips together, purse your lips, and get a little buzz out of it. So without a reed and with the tube in your mouth, you're going to get a sound like this. Now when you introduce a reed, you get that sound. Put that to a tube. I'm not adding any voice, it's just the sound of the reed and your lips vibration. So you throw that into a full bugle. And get that realistic kind of that lip ball kind of sound that a bull makes. Piecing those together with the chuckle, that's going to be your challenge bugle. So. The last kind of sound I'll cover real quick, and this is one that's really came in handy, is is a bark scream. I used it several times, but in case, it helped me kill a bull in New Mexico a few years ago, where the bull came in. I was at full draw for too long. I let down. I couldn't hold my bow back anymore. He didn't know what was going on. He didn't smell me, but he saw some motion. He spun out, went back, and he immediately went up there and barked. And it's like, well, game's up. Well, what he's then announcing is like, show yourself. So that's exactly, I did that same, I screamed or bark chuckle at him. And like I said, bark is even a more exaggerated chuckle, and it's just, yo! A single bark, that's the alarm side of it. But when you introduce a bugle on the back end of it or a chuckle, that's where it's like, hey, I'm here, come show yourself, and you kind of break that stalemate. So this is what that sounds like. Or the bark chuckle. So it's definitely a sound to work on. Like I said, that's going to be even a more shortened, more aggressive, excited chuckle. Yo! And get that air exchange going back and forth. And it's a sound that not a lot of people use in the woods, but it's a really effective tool, especially if they've seen something they weren't quite sure, or they're hung up at that 40-yard mark. They're in a barrier trees, and it's like, show yourself. Let's go do a battle here. A couple years ago, Trevor was calling for me, and that bull was fired up, and he used the challenge bugle, and it was finally like, we had made a pretty big move on him. Trevor challenged him, and that bull came in on a rope. He came in 80 yards, challenge bugle back, and then just made the whole tromp all the way up the hill to us. He was ready to fight. So playing on the emotions, calling with a bugle, getting angry, all that comes into play. But when you're doing it too, you got to kind of build it up. Don't just come in like a wrecking ball off the first locate bugle and then challenge him right away. You kind of got to build those emotions up, kind of raise his awareness of what's going on and get him fired up and pissed off. So hopefully those are some sounds you can put to use and kill a bull this fall. All right, guys, the next kind of topic I'm going to talk about is hunting open country and thick country, and how that kind of plays your calling style, collar position if you got a collar, and setup. A lot of times hunting Roosevelt's here in Oregon, it's real thick. It's going to be a close, intimate setting, and you're basically a lot of times just looking like, how can I get a 20-yard shot or a 25-yard shot? So your setup's going to dictate a little bit about what is actually open as much as a terrain. When you're in open terrain, I'm constantly on Onyx kind of looking for, okay, we've got a bull located, he's just over the backside of this ridge. Well, a lot of times instead of breaking up over that ridge, I'm going to get in position to where I can shoot to that ridge and use the terrain. If it's more open, you may be able to get up there, but he's going to pin you down, and he can see 100 yards up to the ridge, and he's going to stop. He's going to look for that sound. If they can see where the sound is coming from, that's going to be where they're going to stop. So the key, a lot of times, if you got a collar in wide open country, you might be set back 100, 150 yards, because that bull can see the sound and see that far, and if he's going to stop there. So the shooter needs to be in that position where that bull is going to stop. So constantly, like I said, while we're hunting, I'm looking at topo and trying to figure out, okay, we've got a little bench right here, or a little notch in the ridge. I'm going to set up right there. And you want to be able to shoot that bull at the first possible spot. So if he's going to come up to that ridge and crest, you don't want to be 60, 80 yards down the ridge from that. You're going to want to sneak up there and close that distance and get 40 yards or 30 yards from that ridge to where that bull's going to hang up, you can get the shot. So calling style, if you're solo by yourself, the tactic there is call from where that position where you want to think where that elk is going to hang up from, and then you're going to want to sneak and not make another sound into your shooting position. So if you're by yourself, you're in thick terrain, you can still make some noise, but a lot of times this is when we're calling elk, we're real loud, we're breaking branches. If you're as a shooter, you want to sneak into that position to where it's not hearing a branch and going, okay, well, there should be an elk here, and now all of a sudden they're going to stop before that, and they're going to try to pinpoint where that last sound came from. If you're a caller, I also too like to use the terrain where I can move around. I don't want to be pinned down to one tree or one bush. If I need to adjust, if the bull's circling to try to get the wind and I need to change the course of direction, I'm going to try to kind of back on the backside of a finger or in a draw where I'm not announcing this is exactly where I'm at. You kind of want to play that, is the elk hunting you or are you hunting the elk? And you want that elk to be hunting you. So if you're a caller, just kind of stay back in a position where you can have some range of motion, you can adjust. Your job as a caller is to call that bull, broadside 20 yards from your shooter. And if you're pinned down, especially in open country, and you move too much, too fast, too far, that bull can stop at 80 yards and stand up there and look and be like, well, I can see that shrub or that juniper tree. I don't see the elk. He's going to lose interest. Game's not over yet. That's the one thing I think a lot of times, if that elk comes up, stands there on the ridgetop, does the peer over, looking for where that sound, he's like, that bugle was 60 yards from here. I know it should be right here. He can't see it. He's going to lose interest, peel back over the ridge. And this is where a lot of people make the mistake. As soon as he goes to leave, they're going to call instantly. You don't want to call instantly. You want to be able to have that shooter move up into position to where you can shoot from where that last, if they came up and stopped, you want to get into position where you can shoot where they last. They've already been there. They're comfortable. So that's where the bull goes over the ridge. I'm going to put on the ninja boots and move as fast and quietly as possible, get up into position, maybe give the thumbs up to the caller at that point and have him start calling again. And a lot of times that bull will turn and come back right over the ridge and stand in dang near the same exact footsteps of where they were before. So using the terrain to your advantage, like the same deal when you're calling, if there's a little rise, stop before the rise to call. So if they come up over, you have the advantage of them versus you coming up over the rise and they're going to pinpoint you, skyline coming over the ridge or anything like that. In thick terrain, that's where it's fun. The caller can be in my back pocket a lot of times. Hunting Roosevelt stuff, you might only have 20 to or less yards to shoot, some thick reprod. They're pretty territorial and pretty emotional, so you can kind of charge in and be really close to have the caller really close to you. So that's kind of the big differences of hunting Rosies and Rockies and just the terrain and it is and the cover and the trees. But don't give up, keep trying. Like I said, if a bull hangs up, let him walk off, slide into shooting position where you can shoot where he was, then start calling again. So the fun thing, hunting the coast, we do have a bunch of wide open stuff. Case in point, last year, Noah's bull, we were set up and we were on the face of this as close as we could get. We were still about 150, 200 yards from where that bull was. He was down on this bench raking and Eric dropped back. Well, he was all the way over the knob. The problem was the wind was blowing so loud, I could barely hear him as one of the shooters with Noah, and that bull didn't respond at all. So it wasn't until we kind of broke that barrier, I bugled at that bull in relatively wide open, but there was just enough terrain that he couldn't see exactly where I called from, and all of a sudden I turned from shooter to caller and called that bull up the ridge into Noah's lap. So you got to kind of, in the case in point, we were hunting with a pretty good sized crew. We made a little pivot during that setup where it wasn't working, made the adjustment and had that bull come in. Another one with hunting thick stuff, it was really cool to take Casey from Hush, the first Land of the Free in 2017. He'd never hunted that thick terrain, and he'd actually glassed some elk from across the canyon. We drove around and we dropped in the reprod. And as we're sneaking down there, he looks at me, he's like, there's no way we can kill this elk. Like, I can't shoot 10 or 12 yards. And I'm like, and he was also afraid of the noise we were making. I'm like, we're just another elk in the reprod feeding. They don't know that we're hunters. And so having that confidence, making the sounds like elk, as we were dropping down, I was making cow and calf sounds. And the crazy thing is, he only had a 12-yard shooting lane, and he didn't know what it was, but you could hear an elk coming from our calls. He came to full draw, and he was ready. The biggest thing in that thick terrain is being ready to shoot when this shot presents itself. Instead of standing here at draw or not at draw, and that bull steps out, and then you're busted. I had him draw his bow as the bull was coming in. You could hear the limbs breaking, and then when he finally pushed through all that reprod, he shot him frontal at 12 yards. So be ready for the shot. You react on the sound, not just the sight of that bull coming in. So,
hey guys, we have made it this far, and it is a question that we get asked all the time, probably the biggest emailed question that we get. What do I do when a bull's hung up? Okay, what I mean by that is a bull, he's going to come so far and he is going to stop, and that is where he's going to stand his ground. And he may rake trees, he may thrash the ground, he may bugle 100 times, but he is not coming any farther. What do I do? Great question. Happens all the time in hunting. That is one of the more common occurrences, I would say, in elk hunting. There's a few things that you can do though to put the, maybe hopefully put the ball in your court to try to get that elk. So mixing up your calling. So if you got that bull to respond a bunch to bugles, he's bugling at you, you're bugling at him, everything's going great, and he won't come any further. Try something different. Try raking. Try cow calling. Try herd noises. Try getting your caller to break sticks and smash some brush or something of that nature. A lot of times it sometimes works, and then I would say honestly, if you're doing that, the bull is not really hung up. It's actually just wanting, you know, to really be duped by your herd noises. But a real hung up bull is not going to come any further. He is going to sit there and he's going to stand his ground, and he's going to look at wherever he thinks you are and scream his head off and not come any further. So what that bull's doing in that situation is he has a spot that he knows is safe. He's been there before. They know these woods like the back of their hand. He knows he's safe there, and he's safe from you too, because he may not be fully convinced that you're another elk. He may be, you know, a little bit suspicious on what exactly maybe is going on down there, as far as maybe you're not trying to fight him. He may not know, and so he is going to sit there and bugle and bugle and bugle. What we'll do then, it sounds weird, but we will shut up. Don't say a word. And that bull, after a while, he'll keep bugling. Pretty soon he'll bugle like once every 5 minutes maybe. He'll lose interest, and pretty soon he'll turn around and say, all right, I'm the better man, I guess, and walk off. This is a good thing, because you need to get on your next time you call from, you need to get where you can shoot that bull. He's already got a spot that he's been before. He came that far. It is most likely that he will come there again. Sometimes you can do different things, but sometimes you can leave your caller where he's at and have the shooter move up to where he can shoot if that bull comes back there, or move both of you up and try to get that bull. But usually he'll come right back to that spot to where you can get a shot. Another scenario that this happens a lot in is when you're going and say you're cold calling through where you think they're bedded. Maybe they're not bedded right where you think they are. Maybe they're above you. This is kind of not a worst case scenario, but it's definitely not a favorable scenario, because elk do not like to come down to you. They'll usually come side hill to you. That would be the most preferable thing, and sometimes uphill to you, but pretty kind of rarely again is side hill. They feel very comfortable coming on at that level. So if it has a vantage point, if he has a vantage point to where he can see down the hill and look down at you, there's a good chance that he can already see down there that there's not a real elk. Elk are big, they stand out. If you're behind a tree or in some brush bugling and everything, and he's not seeing an actual elk, he's probably not going to come in unless he's super fired up. So get on that point. What I recommend is when he's up on a knob or something like that, climb the hill, get the wind. Wind is number one. Climb that hill to get on his level, and there's a good chance after you tell him where you're at, he may come around and check you out. The other thing, like I said before, go up and get to where that shooter can shoot that position when that elk comes back to the spot that he feels comfortable. So another thing that you can do is add another call into your repertoire, they call it. So we call it the bark scream. So what a bark is actually to an elk, it's an alarm kind of. It's not only an alarm, but it's a telling of, hey, what's going on? Show yourself. And there's been a lot of times that I've seen elk and they'll get so far and then they'll bark at you. They want to see you. They want to see what's going on. And so we'll replicate that. If an elk's hung up and won't come any farther, try to bark at them. And it sometimes can work. Bark, scream, and then scream on a bugle afterwards. And that's saying, hey, I can't see you, show yourself. And sometimes that does work. It's very tough. Every single elk has a different demeanor, has a different attitude. So I think taking all these things in this very last module that we got, taking all these little things and putting them in your court and trying everything, because at that point when that elk's hung up, you've got no choice but to just try some different stuff. So try these this next year.
All right, guys, you've made it this far to the end of the calling video, and the first thing you probably want to know is who won the K4 pack from yesterday. But before I tell you that, if you haven't entered in all these giveaways, we're doing them every day. There's 2 left. We're closing them at midnight, announcing them the next day at the end of the video, and that's what this is. So from yesterday's video, which if you haven't watched the whole Elk Week playlist, Chase will link it right here in the card. But the winner is Vince
Sabura?
Sabuhar?
Sabura.
Or
I'll just put the text. I'll put the back text right here.
no,
for
do
you.
like the Disney intro. Remember?
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
got you.
Oh yeah. So Vince, congratulations. We'll email you. With that said, anytime we're doing giveaways, there's a lot of scammers and a lot of stuff comes out. So like in the comments, Instagram, all these things, people will try to tag you, say that you want a giveaway, and it'll be the exact item that we're talking about, and ask you for your information. We will never make you pay for shipping. We'll never ask for any of that stuff. You're only going to get contacted through email or text from one of us personally. So if it's not that and someone's asking for information to pay for shipping or anything like that, don't do it.
Don't give them your card information.
Save your $12.
You can give me your card information.
Yeah. If you guys don't know, we're Noah and Chase. I'm Noah, that's Chase. We're the ones who usually kind of film these things, put them together, and get them online for you guys. All the guys are gone today. That's why you get us.
B squad.
C squad. With that said, last kind of announcement is this weekend we're doing a big thing at this Baker Boot celebration up in Eugene, Oregon. So if you want to come down or up or sideways to come meet Trent and Steve, come buy some calls, test some stuff out, try on boots, meet the guys from Baker Boots. There'll be a ton of other vendors there too. Come down to that Baker Boots anniversary sale, right? That's what it is?
Yep.
Yeah. I believe that's Saturday all day. So
yeah, and if you haven't been to the shop, it's an awesome shop. It's worth going and just check out.
It's something that's really cool about Baker Boots is you can try on every brand. I think there's a lot of people who will say one brand is this or one brand is that. You can go down there and try on literally every major boot brand and figure out what actually works for you. So that's what we've been doing. It works great. And yeah, that Baker Boots anniversary sale is this weekend. Trent and Steve will be there, ready to shake your hand, meet you. And yeah, so with that, that's it. Oh, last thing. Tomorrow night, we're going to release the Brotherhood film. If you don't know what that is, I'll roll the trailer after this. If you haven't seen that, it's pretty awesome. But that's going to go public tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific time, and it's pretty cool. So see you guys tomorrow.
In 2007, we picked up a video camera for the first time. We wanted to show what hunting was to us, the realities of chasing elk. It was the roller coaster of bow hunting. Since that, we rolled on DVDs for 10 years. In 2017, we quit our jobs and came up with this project we called Land of the Free. We bow hunted 5 states for 50 days straight. From 2017 to now, we spent 240 days in the field chasing bulls with our bow. But through it all, one thing has remained consistent. The Brotherhood.
Oh, yeah!
Good job, brother. Oh, man.
Love you guys.
That was an experience, man. Oh, my God.
Is that a horn?
That's it, baby. That's a 6 point.
That is a horn, isn't it?
Control, plot twist, a whole generation life.
first one down. Get down! Get down! One thing about our brotherhood is that we always show up for each other. Every single time, no matter what.
No worries over nickels and dimes or a 9-to-5 grind. I gotta get loose sometimes and try